Hello and welcome to the NTI PodTalk. My name is Diane Kaler and I'm Director of Nutrition Therapy Institute. Join me as I talk to interesting people in the field of health and wellness, food and farming, and anywhere else we find conversations that matter to our community. By listening, you'll learn a little about NTI and a lot about the things and people around you that make a difference for your wellness. Welcome and let's get started. Hello there. This is Diane Kaler, Director of Nutrition Therapy Institute. I want to welcome you back to another edition of the NTI Pod Talk. And today I'm very excited to be talking to a graduate of both of our programs, Jenna Bos. She is a graduate of both our NTMC program and our NFC program. So we're going to have lots of interesting conversations. Jenna has done some really interesting and exciting things with her certifications and her skills that she has, and I'm interested in hearing about that. So welcome, Jenna. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks. All right. So before we talk about what you've been doing since graduation, let's talk about what you even did before you came to NTI. So what was your background? What led you to want to get education? So I'll just say first, you came to our NTMC program. You were an online distance learner with our NTMC program, and then made the jump to do the NFC program, our Natural Food Chef Training Program, which is located here in Arvada, Colorado. So tell us about your background. What made you even want to start pursuing this type of education?
Yeah. So I'm from Bozeman, Montana. That's where I grew up. My parents, my whole childhood were I would say, very health conscious, and my mom always was like making good food for us and kind of explaining like this does this for your body and that sort of thing. So I feel like from a young age, I had a very um, keen awareness on how food affected my body, and it was always something that I was super in tune with and very interested in. And then when I finished high school, a couple years after I finished high school, I took a 6 month yoga training, and it was a yoga and Ayurveda training. So we did a full in-depth Ayurvedic course and talked a lot about just living in rhythm with nature and how food plays a role into that. And it kind of, I would say, heightened that interest for me of like, oh, wow, I feel like I could really do something with this, but I just don't know. I don't have the tools to do that. And so I was kind of exploring like, should I just do Ayurveda? But that's a very niche thing, and not a lot of people are super into
Right,
that. So
right.
I did a quick Google search and found NTI and just like it fit. So I was super excited about it.
Great, good. So you started out in the NTMC program, which for those of you who don't know, stands for Nutrition Therapist Master Certification Program. So that is our sort of flagship nutrition training program. And graduates are nutrition therapist masters. They are certified to provide therapeutic guidance for using nutrition strategies. So um, you did that program, I believe, all online, correct?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
So I did it fully online, and I did two classes per term, I guess, because I
Mm-hmm.
had the time. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think I finished my program in 18 months and then
Great.
graduated in January, like fully finished everything at the beginning of January of last year. So not that long ago, just kind of weird. It feels like forever ago.
Yeah. 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 And then uh how did you get from, you know, being interested and participating in the NTMC program and then jumping to the NFC program, which for that you had to actually move here because it's in person only. So how was that transition and what was your thought process in doing that?
Yeah. So I think when I first signed up for NTI, I like didn't know, like I knew about the chef program, but I was just kind of like, oh, I don't feel like I need that, you know?
Yeah.
Then as I started to go kind of more in depth and was taking classes about halfway through, I was just like, huh, I like to cook. And now I know all these things. Like I should really meld the two together. Like that just makes so much sense. And I think people would get a lot out of it, you know? And so then I signed up and then, yeah, made the move after I graduated, moved down to Colorado at the end of January, and then finished in May of last year also. So yeah, it was kind of a no-brainer to just put the two together in my mind. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
super excited about it. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. So you said you knew how to cook before you took the program.
Mm.
Um, I would imagine that once you got into the program, the depth of your knowledge and your cooking confidence increased.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like since I was in high school have always worked in restaurants and then I come from a very like food savvy family, so just always in the kitchen every holiday. So I was like I would say pretty confident in my cooking skills just as like a person in the world, but like
Mm-hmm.
as far
Right.
as like applying it professionally, I was like, oh, I have no idea what to do.
Yeah.
And so going to the NFC program, and also having the nutrition behind like background behind that, having graduated, I was like, whoa, like this makes a lot of sense. I can put everything together. I feel a lot more confident in what I can tell people and how I can help people. And then also just building those technical skills up. I mean, those like very traditional like knife skills and how
Mm-hmm.
to cook veggies a certain way for certain dishes and do things like that are like culturally appropriate for certain dishes. I think really expanded my depth of knowledge for food, which is super awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a typical experience. So the two experiences that we see here in people who do both programs, people who go through the nutrition program, they're really fascinated with nutrition and health and how nutrients affect health and all that kind of stuff. And as they get into it, part of your education is creating meal plans for people, right? And what I have heard students say is, I'm creating these meal plans for people, but I actually don't know how to cook myself, you
Hmm.
know? And so it feels very like inauthentic because they're like, I'm telling my clients they need to be, eating these foods and cooking these foods and doing these things, but I don't know how to cook myself. And so that prompts them to want to take our NFC program. So that's one path. And so that's, like they show up in NFC, like, okay, I might be able to boil water, I might be able to make hard boiled eggs, but that's pretty much it, and so their learning curve is quite large.
Hmm.
And then we have people like yourself who are very, as you say, confident in the kitchen just to sort of be this person who can take care of yourself. But in terms of, what you don't know is that in terms of actually working in this field as a professional, the skill set needs to be increased. And so, and that was your path. And as you said, the growth was, noticeable and sort of an exponential growth in your knowledge. So that's great.
Yeah.
Um, because I talk all the time with people about how in order to truly be healthy and be sort of responsible for sustaining your own health and wellness, you have to know how to cook and you have to know how to, prepare food in your own home, because relying on others, for the most part, relying on others, you are putting yourself in a position where likely you're not going to be eating nutrient dense foods. So would you agree with that?
100%. Yeah, it's always I mean, if you're hanging out with people that are very like-minded, obviously it's different, but I would say the majority of people, especially in the US, you're not gonna have that experience with. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I want to talk about some of the experiences you have had since graduating in NFC. That seems to be where you have focused your work so far since graduating from both programs. So um, I know that you worked helping run a food truck.
Mhm.
and then you did worked for an organization called First Descents, and then you did some stuff in Mexico. So let's talk about first the food truck experience. Talk about that and kind of how that came about and what the timing was and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so my cousin's boyfriend owns a food truck called Rosa here in Bozeman, and it's a paella food truck. We only do chicken and chorizo paella. And for those of you listening who don't know what paella is, it's a Spanish rice dish. Um, and basically, when I was living in Denver, for the NFC program, he called me and was just like, "Hey, do you need a job?" Like, kind of explaining to me what it is. He's like, "We go to music festivals, we go to farmers markets." And I was just like, "Oh, that sounds great." Like, I need something when I get back. So the timing was like right when I got back from Denver. It just worked out really well to have a
Mhm.
job lined out and stuff. And so yeah, it was really nice because I worked with him who, I mean, he's known me my whole life, so that was great just to work for someone who I'm like comfortable with, obviously, and who knows what they're doing. He's had this business for a really long time. And then also, a bunch of my friends got to work with us as well, which was super fun.
Yeah.
So, but basically, my job was to do all of the prep for him. So I would go to Costco or the Eco store or reach out to like the places that we were sourcing from in Bozeman, and get all of the ingredients. And then I'd go back to the kitchen and just chop onions and peppers all day. And I think at the end of the summer, I tallied up that I chopped over like 2 tons of onions and 3 tons of peppers just for
Wow.
the amount of paella we were cooking, which is so hard to like imagine, but it was crazy. And then we would have the whole week of doing farmers markets and then music events in Bozeman. And so we basically would just set up our paella pans and cook them and then serve them. Again, we do one thing, so it's super easy and people love it. And it was just super awesome to serve people who look forward to it every year because it is seasonal here. So everyone's like, oh, it's paella season, the locals are so excited and people just, it's a very comforting dish. So people really enjoy it. And I think just like seeing people so stoked on it is awesome. That's like the best part of the job. So yeah, it was a great time for sure.
Nice. So I have not ever worked or had any experience with food trucks. So you were not doing all that chopping in the food truck,
So
or were you? Because that seems like a really confined space to do all of that chopping.
yeah, yeah. So the way I would do it, because I mean, in most places in the US, if you're preparing food for a restaurant or a food truck, you have to do it in like a certified commercial kitchen.
Okay.
And so John, my boss, got his food truck certified to be a commercial kitchen. So when I would
Okay.
do prep, I would prep in the food truck.
Wow. Yeah.
But what was so nice, because I would have to chop, I mean, for like a week's worth of paella, like a slow week, I would have to chop 10 pound bags of onions and about like 60 peppers or something. Some crazy number. But we had like this huge, kind of a slam chop device. So I would like cut and peel everything, take the seeds out, whatever, and then just kind of do like a bunch of slam chopping, which was I was very thankful for that because having to hand chop everything, I think, would have been
Okay.
the bane of my
Yes.
existence. So yeah,
All
it
right. All
was
right. All right. So there was a mechanism in place so
yeah.
that you weren't doing everything by hand. All right. That's good. Well, that's fascinating. Very
Mhm.
cool. Um, all right. So then talk about First Descents. What is First Descents and tell us what you did for them.
Yeah. So First Descents, I should preface, they came and did a presentation during the NFC program, and I
Mhm.
was immediately just like, yes, I want that job. Sign me up. So First Descents is a nonprofit based out of Denver, and they um, basically the whole concept is they bring cancer patients ages 18 through 39 on wilderness retreats, and they're people that have been affected. Shouldn't say cancer patients, but people that have been affected by cancer and are on different stages of their cancer journey. So some people are newly diagnosed, some folks are currently going through chemo, radiation, all that, and then some folks are in remission. And then they also do retreats for oncology healthcare workers, caretakers, and folks with MS. And so the significance of the age group being 18 through 39 is because generally those are the people least affected by cancer. And maybe not like it's a growing rate, unfortunately, nowadays, but
Mm-hmm.
they don't have a lot of community, right? Because when you go to an oncology clinic, a lot of the people sitting next to you are maybe in their 50s, 60s, 70s, or older. And so it's this idea of if we're all together under one roof for a week, just facilitating those connections and kind of having it be a very therapeutic experience on top of getting outside and pushing yourselves out of your comfort zone, to just kind of revitalize, make you feel alive again. And so the activities they bring folks on are surfing, kayaking, and rock climbing. And so they're kind of these very high adrenaline sports, to
Mm-hmm.
just, again, bring people together, have people connect over these like very bonding experiences. And so my job is I work alongside another chef, and we essentially like make the menu based on the guidelines, nutritional guidelines that First Descents have. And then we show up for the week, we do all the grocery shopping, and then we do breakfast, lunch, dinner, dessert, snacks, for everyone the whole week. And we get to eat with them. We get to share kind of most of their day with the participants, which is super awesome, and also connect with them. It's not like we're hiding in the kitchen the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then we send them on their way with recipes and resources for us, as chefs. And yeah, it's a very special job, and I'm super grateful to be a part of it. So.
So, couple questions just for my own curiosity. So, there are three different types of wilderness trips that they go on.
Mhm.
Are they in different locations? I mean, obviously the surfing needs to be somewhere near an ocean.
Yeah.
Um, uh, so they're in different locations. So are you like at like a resort, or is there a camp that has its for first descents where they have their own facilities there and like cabins or tents or whatever? How does that work?
Yeah, so essentially, there's different locations across the US. And generally I mean, First Descents goes to the same ones because they have a good relation with the outfitters that facilitate the experiences, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and essentially what they do is they just rent like vacation house rentals. And so some of them are big enough to where we can all fit under one roof. And then sometimes when I was at my retreat last year in Santa Cruz, we had to rent three separate houses that were all next to each other, for the surf retreat. And then we had like one kitchen that people would come and eat dinner. We had kind of one community house.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and so it kind of depends on the location and what's available, but they generally will rent like the same facilities, and they have built a rapport with the owners of the houses and that sort of thing.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
yeah, yeah, it's super cool.
Yeah, that's a cool way to do it.
Mhm.
'Cause they don't need to invest in infrastructure that's not going to be used when they're not there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Oh,
and
that's
it's
really
I think a
great.
lot more homey for participants too, to just be
Yeah.
a house, could
Mm-hmm.
have a kitchen and like a comfortable bed and that sort of thing. So it's really
Mm-hmm.
nice for them.
How many people or how many participants are on the trips? Like how many people are you cooking for on those trips?
Yeah, so generally speaking, it's two chefs, and then we have two lead staff who take folks out on the excursions and facilitate conversation at the end of the day, that sort of thing. And then we have two general support volunteers, which generally help with dishes in the kitchen.
That's
Um,
always nice.
so nice. Yeah, so nice. And then we have a med staff volunteer and a photographer. So we have like 6 to 8 staff. And
Hmm.
then we generally will have 12 to 14 participants. So we're
Oh, wow.
cooking for about like 20 people every night. And then
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we try and include the surf instructors, the rock climb guides, the raft or kayaking guides to also come to dinner like once a week just to continue the day. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so sometimes it'll be like, okay, we're cooking for 30 tonight, we're cooking for 20, that sort of, or 25 instead of just 20. But
Right.
it's a very large group of people to prepare
Yeah.
food for every day.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
That is a big group. Yeah.
Yeah.
I uh, got freaked out when I had to cook for 10 people over a holiday. So doing it for 30 feels a little overwhelming, but I'm sure you handled it very well.
Yeah, yeah, you get used to it. You're kind of just like, hey, put my head down, let's chop some
Yeah,
vegetables, get it done.
right,
So,
right.
all
Yeah,
pretty
and
good.
I would imagine, if you're prepared well enough, if you know what your menu is, you've bought all the ingredients, you've bought them, in the numbers needed to feed all those people,
Mhm.
that's like the largest part of the whole thing, right? Just being prepared.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And I just started last year and I haven't worked too many programs. And so I kind of work under like the lead chefs, which is super fun because it's so interesting to just see the process of how they take into account like not only the amount of people we're cooking for and what we need to prep before everyone gets here, but also considering like allergies and medication
Yeah,
interactions and medical
right.
requirements and all of those things that we need to just take into account when preparing and cooking the food.
Hmm.
So it's a lot of planning on their end, and it's it's very interesting to watch. And I am very nervous for when I have to do it eventually because it's like a lot of work. But I mean, it's a great learning experience, and it's something that I think I really think that the NFC program like applies super well too. So
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that's great. All right. So another what sounds like really exciting experience you've had is living in Mexico for 4 months. And so tell us how you did that, what you were doing there. Like what were you working in a restaurant? Like I don't even know what you were doing there. Tell us about that.
so it was super kind of a random trip. But after I finished my season doing paella and doing first descents last year, my boyfriend and I were planning like just a road trip in our van. And his parents go down to Mexico every year to the same place in Sayulita. Um, and they were just like, hey, we're driving down, like you guys should come with us. And so we were just kind of like brainstorming how could we make it work. So over the summer we both saved a lot of money and just decided, well, like Mexico's pretty cheap, we can live down there for a while, let's just try it, see what happens. And so yeah, so we drove down there, kind of caravan with his parents. It was a 3-day drive to where we were living, and we rented a house through some family friends of theirs. And basically just surfed and ate food and experienced the culture and traveled around a little bit. And then I took a lot of cooking classes from a local person, which was super, super awesome.
Yeah.
And then cooked a lot of food after that, based on,
Hmm.
what I had available at the markets and stuff. Um, didn't really practice my Spanish as much as I should. I wish I would have honed in on that more, but yeah, it was just kind of a nice break for us for a
Hmm.
while and just to be among like a different culture and that sort of thing.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
so having that experience where you are immersed in a different culture, different eating patterns, different access to ingredients, how did that affect your approach to food, or did it?
Yeah, it definitely did. I mean, I think, I feel like we all know this, but Mexico is obviously like a poorer country compared to the US. So it's not like we
Mhm.
have we had access to like a huge supermarket down the street. We had to drive 2 hours to like the biggest city to get like American ingredients, we'll say, quote unquote.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I got really good at getting creative with just what I could get at the farmer's market every week and what I could get at the local produce stands and just kind of working with ingredients that we don't have access to in the US most of the time or not at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think taking the cooking classes and just eating out a lot was like very helpful to kind of familiarize my palate with the ingredients that these folks that are running the restaurants and the cooking classes also had available for me to translate that to our kitchen at home.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was really cool. And I think in America, like we obviously have Mexican food and we all eat it, we've all experienced it, but I think being in we were in Nayarit, so it has like a very different like culturally different dishes than the rest of Mexico. It's a lot fresher,
Hmm.
it's a lot more seafood, it's a lot more fruit as well, like incorporated into everything. So you just get familiar with like how to adjust your palate to your surrounding ingredients and the kind of culture around you. And so that was a big learning experience and kind of blew my mind a little bit because I was just like, oh, I didn't know I could use cactus in a salad, and
Right.
stuff like that. So, yeah, it was super, it was a really good learning experience, and I'm happy I pushed myself to do it because it's so easy when you travel to just fall into your comfort zones of what you're used to eating and what you know. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, pushing those boundaries a little bit was super, super great.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Cool. All right. Well, so let's talk about kind of what you've been doing most recently and then what your upcoming plans are. So you have been working at a local restaurant. Talk about working in a restaurant because like working in the food truck, that is maybe a little bit of a restaurant experience, but my sense is that it's not quite equivalent to working in a restaurant. So talk about working in a restaurant. What have you been doing? And how is that experience? Uh, and how did it draw upon your skills that you got from NFC?
Yeah. So I think to echo on your point, working in a restaurant is very different from a private chef situation like First Ascents or the food truck. It's there's a lot there's a lot more moving parts to it. There's a lot more people to kind of work with and try and communicate with and all of that. And then obviously how you execute the food is like completely different. So,
Mhm.
and I've worked in a lot of restaurants before, but this one specifically is like a health food cafe. And so focusing more on like plant-based vegan options, and then creative, like I would say more creative, like protein options for people. And they do fresh juices and bone broth and cultured dairy and all these like
Mhm.
lovely things that I'm super into. And so, um, yeah, just kind of the big thing I think that's different is as like in my role right now is I'm a manager, so it's more the people side of things and having to facilitate like, okay, we have to prep this much this week and I'm not the one directly doing it, so putting my trust in someone else to kind of execute it the way that I want it to be. um,
Mhm.
and that's always like it goes up and down, right, depending on who's doing it and what's happening. So just being super flexible and able to just go with the flow is super important, I think. And then also, you're cooking a set menu every time, right? And so even though like paella was one thing, so it was super easy because it's like, this is all we make. We can't do any adjustments. Here you go, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
But with this, it's like we have, 18 different menu items that people choose from, and they can add or subtract things. And so just being able to kind of like adjust and be on your toes a little bit more, I think was something that doesn't happen so much in like the private chef world, I think,
Mhm.
because it's like you get to plan the menu, you know what to expect, you know what your clients can expect, and you have like obviously you have to be able to adjust. But I think being a ticket comes in and you're like, oh, it's gluten free, but they want it actually to have gluten bread instead, you have to be able to like adjust like that.
Yeah. Mhm.
So that's been super fun just to be able to work in, I think, a little bit more of a fast-paced environment and something that pushes me a little bit more in that way. And then I've been able to create a lot of the specials. And so having that creative freedom to like serve the food that I am making is and coming up with is super cool, and seeing people enjoy it I think is super important. Um, so yeah, it's been really fun. It's been a lot. It's definitely like a very big change from last year's work, but it's been a learning experience for sure. So yeah.
Yeah. Um, So once again, for those people who might be interested in taking the NFC program,
Mhm.
um, I think that, and you chime in here with your experience. I think that we talk about the NFC program as training you to be confident in a wide variety of kitchen environments, but I would say that the restaurant environment is probably the path that is least taken by
Yeah.
our graduates, because most of the time they want to do, private personal chefing,
Mhm.
or like what you're doing, wellness retreats, your first ascents retreat type of thing. Um, but, uh, you know, with a little bit of a learning curve, you
Mhm.
can step into a restaurant environment, if that is something that is of interest to you, or the opportunity arises. Talk about your response to that.
Yeah. I think that having like any sort of culinary education, just as far as like the technical skills go and being able to build your confidence in the kitchen is going to get you like, I mean, really any job in the food industry that you want. And that's what's so
Mhm,
great about the industry is like you can kind of be super pick and choosy with what you want because there are so many options and that can be so overwhelming to people. But I think it's kind of cool to be able to be like, oh, well, I kind of worked in the wellness like retreat space for a while, but now I want to do something different. And I have this background and this experience, and just being open to learn to be in like a different environment with the skills you have, I think is just a really great way to build your resume and build your experience and kind of also figure out like, oh, I'm not super passionate. Like for me, like I'm not super passionate about working in a restaurant, partly because I've done it and also like I've done it my whole life and also it's just like very different from how I can apply my skills in the way that I want to, I guess, because you're
mhm,
really able to, unless you own the restaurant, like you're not really able to have a lot of say in what's going on.
mhm,
Um, so for me, like having worked in restaurants and having like managed one now, like I know that for sure. And
mhm,
that's given me the confidence to be like, oh, like I don't really want to do this anymore. So I'm gonna, maybe go down this way if I want to, more the private chef route. Or if you're like
mhm,
super sick of the private chef route, like you have your culinary experience and your education from the NFC program to have the confidence to be like, I can work in any kitchen that I really want to, you know?
mhm, mhm,
Um, for the most part. There are some like, there's fine dining maybe might that's a whole separate world of the food industry.
mhm, mhm,
Um, but yeah, so I think that's what's really cool about the NFC program is just I feel like it for me kind of opened up so many doors. And like I said, when I graduated, I was so overwhelmed, but in a good way of like, what do I want to do? Like there's so many possibilities. Like,
mhm.
so but it's kind of cool to be able to just have some freedom in picking and choosing with like what aligns more with you and your values. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
awesome. I very well said. I like the way you said that. All right. So, I'll just let the cat out of bag. You are studying for your board exam.
Yep.
Now let's go to your NTMC,
Mhm.
education, right? So you've been really focusing on your chef training and using those skills, in a lot of different ways. And you are studying for your board exam. So, do you have like thoughts or plans of how you can kind of meld these two disciplines together?
Yeah.
The nutrition training, the natural food chef training, you're going to get board certified in holistic nutrition. Like, the sky is the limit, really. It's,
Yeah.
up to your own creativity, your own initiative, those kinds of things. But do you have any thoughts of how you can incorporate these two things together?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is hard because I feel like I always have so many thoughts, so I haven't set on one, I guess. Um, but one thing I think that you kind of mentioned earlier is in the NTMC program, we talk a lot about making a meal plan for a client, and a lot of people simply just don't know how to execute that because if we're being completely honest, the majority of people, especially in the US, I'm going to say it again, just don't know how to cook and don't know how
Mhm,
to take care of themselves through food.
mhm,
And so,
mhm,
a big thing that I would like to do eventually, and I don't know exactly how this would look, but um, just to be able to take on a client for a nutrition therapy purpose and then be able to be like, hey, I'm going to make you this meal plan, but I'm going to go into your kitchen and I'm going to actually teach you how to do it with these cooking skills that I have that I can hopefully impart onto
mhm,
you,
mhm,
and to,
mhm,
I think, boost people's confidence in that way really kind of is a good um like wake up call or like big encouragement for people to be like, oh, I can do this. Like, this isn't scary. I don't have to like see this meal plan and just kind of be like, oh, I don't really know how to do it. So I'm just not, because that's how a lot of
Right.
people are.
Yes,
And so
absolutely.
I think my biggest thing is like if I can, put people in their kitchen and be like a helping hand and actually like walk them through the steps of how to do it, then it's like you've done your job. Like I've shown you how to take care of yourself and we've walked through the protocols and the steps to get you to your goals and now you can have this long-term like practice essentially to impart
Mm,
into your own life and keep it going. I think it makes it like a lot more of a sustainable experience rather than me just kind of being like, okay, like let me write you a meal plan, like good luck, and
mhm,
having them
mhm,
come back to you every single time. Like,
mhm.
um, yeah. So I think that's my biggest goal. And again, I don't know like when or how or
Yeah,
why
sure.
it'll happen, but or when it'll happen. But yeah, I think that's kind of the biggest reason that I wanted to meld the two together.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's very realistic and the good way to look at it and the right way to do it because as you say, if people can't actually implement the guidance you're providing, um, they're obviously not going to be able to sustain any kind of benefit they get from that guidance or even get to any kind of benefit if they're not able to actually learn how to do things in their own kitchen. And I think, you going into their kitchen and teaching them how to cook in their own kitchen is also really helpful because they're in their own environment and they know where everything is and they can see how you actually did it using their things,
Yeah,
which is really helpful.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
definitely.
think, yeah, just being, I think instilling confidence in people, because I do think a lot of people, just through my own experience of working in these different capacities that I have with people, is like, I think food, whether it's like through nutrition or through just like the act of cooking, like food for a lot of people is very scary and very intimidating. And I think just being able to like instill confidence in people is like a huge, huge part of like what I want to do and what I want to like bring to my clients that I will eventually have. So
Hmm, hmm.
taking out the fear factor of it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I haven't thought of it that way. And maybe that fear is what leads them to, you know, eat restaurant food,
Mhm.
corner gas station food, because they figure, well, someone else made it and therefore for some reason there's nothing to fear, it must be good, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know, so that's an interesting way of looking at it. I've never really thought of it that way, not that that's exactly what you said, but that's where my brain went, is maybe that's why people are so willing to eat low quality food from restaurants, whatever,
Mhm.
because they just have such an obstacle to do it for themselves and they do have that fear around it.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Hit it on the head. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, so uh right now we're sort of coming into the summer. By the time this comes out, it'll probably be midsummer. So what does your summer look like? What kind of things are you going to be doing?
Yeah, so I'm gonna be traveling with First Ascents, just kind of all over doing programs and stuff, which will
Hmm.
be super fun.
Hmm.
And then outside of that, I'm gonna be cooking paella again, which is going to be super
Wow.
fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, we have a very busy summer planned with that, so it'll be a lot more work, which will be great. And then I'm also teaching cooking classes kind of like intermittently a couple times a month at the Cancer Support Community of Montana. And it's more of like a cooking demo than I would say like an actual hands-on class, but it's kind of a fun way for me to just be like, hey, here's what we're making, here's why it's good for you, here's how you should do
Hmm.
it, and it tastes good. So
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of it. And then I'm hoping to travel more, like maybe at the end of the year, beginning of next year, and get some more kind of different cultural food experiences under my belt. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, it's gonna be a good year. I'm excited.
Nice. Very good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, any final thoughts? And let's let's talk to those who, once again, maybe haven't made the decision that they want to come to school.
Mhm.
Any advice, for either program or for how to combine the two? Um, you know, because you are making it work. You are making a career out of this. So, what kind of advice can you give to people who haven't made the jump to go into school, but they want to kind of see what's possible after they get out?
Yeah. Man, that's hard. I think my biggest advice would be to and I don't know really how to word this, but like go into it with the expectation of no expectations. And what I mean by that is like not attaching yourself to an outcome of like one thing, right? Because as I said, like both both of the programs at NTI like opened up so many doors for me that I didn't even honestly have on my radar, like had no
Hmm.
clue that that was possible. I kind of went in thinking like, oh, maybe I'll work under like a functional MD or like maybe just take on clients, kind of do my own thing. Like I was super unsure, but I was very kind of attached to like, this is what I'm going to do when I'm done with school, you know?
Hmm.
And so I think for people to just go in with the expectation that you're going to like learn a lot more than you think you are, you're going to get so much more than you think you are out of it. And you're also going to have so many opportunities and so many possibilities that you don't even know right now, you know, and
Hmm.
to be
Yeah.
open and flexible to having those things come your way is huge because
Hmm.
I think it's a lot more fun. And I think also it's just, yeah, it's good to expand your horizons. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
think everyone should do it, honestly. But
Yeah. Yeah. So be open to whatever kind of comes, even if
Mhm.
it doesn't feel like what your primary expectation was, because you never know where it'll go.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
Nice.
and I think as far as like I mean both the nutrition therapy aspect and the natural food chef aspect of it is taking your knowledge and your values you've created through your education and really holding on to those and you're going to try on jobs and things aren't going to work, you're going to have to turn down jobs and I think if you have just that set value system of like this is what I've learned, this is what I've believed, this is what's in my lifestyle, you're
Hmm.
going to find something that's going to fit and jive with that. And I think that is the most important job that you should choose out of those aspects. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's very good advice. I love that.
Yeah.
So do you do social media or anything? Should we give people any kind of ways to, follow you or anything like that? I don't know if you do social media stuff.
I'm pretty lazy with social media, but I have decided to create an Instagram like eventually now that I'm starting to do more of my own thing. So yeah, it will come to fruition eventually, but just not right now.
Okay, well, that's
I'll send
fine.
it
That's
to
fine.
you and let
I
you
don't want
know.
to put you on the spot and force you to put something out there, but I just thought I'd
Yeah.
offer if you have something you want to put out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jenna. This has been a really fun conversation, fun to learn about you and all the experiences you've had in, a relatively short period of time, and all the growth you've experienced is really exciting to hear. So thanks for
Thank you.
taking the time today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It was great to see your face again. It's so weird that I'm
Oh,
not in the Nourish house anymore. I'm
I
like,
know.
so much. So,
I know. Yeah, we
yeah.
miss everyone. We miss all the faces. So,
Oh,
all righty. Well, have a great rest of your day. It's been really fun.
awesome. Yeah, thank you, Diane. Take
Okay.
care.
Bye. Hi, Diane Kaler here again. If you found this conversation interesting and haven't already become a student at NTI, check us out at ntischool.com. We hope to see you soon.